If you're a residential real estate agent earning $200,000 a year and you want to grow your passive income, this show's for you. Learn the secrets other agents use and hear from experts in our field in order to guide you along your journey to investing in assets like apartment communities so that you can turn your commissions into cash flow. I'm Randall McLeod. Let's go, baby. All right, welcome back. You're in for a treat today. I've got my friend Jason Glast of the Jason Glast Group. He is a top producing realtor in the San Antonio market with Phyllis Browning. Him and his team focus on high-end luxury real estate, and they're crushing it. They have been well known in the market since the early 2000s. And so he has a lot of experience in the space. He's an attorney, UT grad, and again, a wealth of knowledge. So he shares some of the things that they're doing to succeed. He talks about the market a little bit and what he's seeing. And then we talk some investments. So without further ado, let's bring him on. All right. Jason, awesome to have you on this show today. Thanks for joining me. I was digging in. Obviously, you and I know each other from the pickleball courts. I'm used to seeing you in like a St. Mary's Hall t-shirt and you're smashing the ball. So it's good to catch you on a work day. We're both dressed up, ready to go. So thanks for joining me. I wanted to dive in and ask you, because knowing you and kind of seeing you're an attorney and you're a realtor. So I'm just curious, like, how did that come about? What was the transition? Give me some backstory there.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking that. Growing up, my mom was a realtor and an interior designer, very artistic, and my dad was a real estate attorney. So I really had the left brain and the right brain were both absolutely engaged there. And, frankly, I kind of thought, well, I've got a really great education and I should probably go the lawyer route because, well, that seemed more a fit with having a great education. So I did go to law school when I was 22, UT Law School, which I'm really happy I did. But honestly, I was pretty immature at the time. And I also was not sure what I would do with that law degree. I was trying to resist actually being a realtor because I'm just going to be totally frank. I thought it was beneath me. I did. Yeah. Like I put all this time and education in. Well, it turned out that when I finally did take the leap, gave up the practice of law to do realty full time, within about 2 weeks, I knew it was the perfect fit for me, and it really surprised me. But it's been a good career to mash up all those skills that I've developed in both real estate and in law.
Yeah. So what was it that, because I'm kind of similar path, honestly. I went to Tulane, and then after that, I was going to go to law school. I figured, hey, I'm going to go down that path, but I went and worked for an attorney for a little while. And that's what clued me in. I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that full time. I like reading the contract. I like understanding. I like the legalese, all of that. But like, what was it for you that was really what was better and what was worse?
I didn't like any of that. I basically don't like any structure. So it's insane that I ended up doing so much school because I didn't even like school. I didn't like regular school. I really didn't like law school. I mean, there were definitely some interesting concepts, but generally I hate structure. And so to have a day where sometimes you don't know how that day is going to go, that's exciting to me. So even though, yes, I'm good at spotting issues and attention to detail, I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
I truly do not enjoy that part. So I've ended up hiring people that are very good at that type of thing. So that helps keep me in check.
Is that Todd's job? Is that what he does now?
He's definitely good with that, but I mean, I think he's more on my wavelength that this is what he wanted to do. He didn't want to be practicing law really either.
Yeah. We'll talk about the team in just a minute. So again, obviously knowing your work here in San Antonio, I know you work in high-end luxury homes and properties. So curious how you ended up in that category. What was it that drew you to that? Or was that like your mom already had the end and so that was the direction you knew you were going?
And absolutely did not have the end because I grew up in Dallas and that's where my mom raised me. So we did not have these connections in San Antonio. But when I started this business 20 years ago, I really looked hard about what could be the niche. And with my background and knowing my mom had done high end in Dallas, I felt like, okay, I need to try to do this. At the time, it was more like probably 750,000 and higher. Okay. And it was great because not many people were doing it. Well, there was a reason for that, is because very few houses ever sold at that level or higher. In fact, in 2003, I think there were 32 houses that sold over $1 million in the entire San Antonio metro area. Today, it's closer to 700. That shows how much it's blown up. But I also saw that the competition they were just different than I were. They were maybe from the older money sections of the city. They've been doing this a long time. For the most part, they were female. So I thought I could maybe present a different version for that high-end seller specifically. And feel fortunate that it worked out, because at the time it was like, okay, I have no numbers that can justify my faith in taking this leap. But I think I hit the timing right, where when I started, then the market started to become a little bit better in the high end in this city. And we had more and more people moving here. And
there was a big growth through that period in San Antonio.
Absolutely.
Catching it on the upwave.
La Cantera got built around then.
Yeah.
We moved here right before La Cantera or the Rim existed.
Yeah. Have you guys done, this is kind of off, but have you done like high-end condos and that sort of thing? Or do you guys focus mainly on the, Cordillera Ranch and that sort of product?
Yeah, no, we definitely do high-end condos. We're probably second or third all time for selling condos at the Broadway and the Alamo Heights area.
Yeah.
And so, we've been pretty fortunate, and that does go hand in hand with being part of Phyllis Browning Company, because they definitely have the inside track in that building, which is the premier high rise in our market. Yeah.
So when you transitioned, that was 2003 when you
That's right.
made the switch from attorney. What kind of law were you practicing?
Intellectual property, specifically advertising and marketing. When I say it out loud, it probably sounds more interesting than it actually was, but I was in-house counsel at Turner Broadcasting in Atlanta. And so my clients were the marketing divisions of CNN, the Cartoon Network, the Atlanta Braves, Hawks, and Thrashers. That was their hockey team at the time. World Championship Wrestling. These were all my clients, where the marketing people would bring their promotions and advertising to me for review to make sure they weren't using someone's images without their permission, or that their scheme in a sweepstakes, for example, didn't make a person think they had to subscribe to a magazine in order to enter. You always had to have a free method of entry. So I became really expert on this part of the law that I literally have no interest whatsoever. No purchase necessary. Void in Puerto Rico. I became expert at that, and it's really super boring. But
that's funny,
I gave it my best, and but after a while, I think my second year, all the promotions were basically the same. And I can remember that I think somebody with the Atlanta Hawks asked to do this promotion where somebody would, they pick somebody from the audience, they dress in one of those like sumo suits, and they'd run around. And just because that our prompt as attorneys at Turner Broadcasting was to be incredibly conservative. Captain, no.
Yeah.
I really didn't like that. And so I remember having to tell the Hawks marketing guy, you can't do this. Too dangerous, too much risk for pain. And I can remember he said, well, the San Antonio Spurs just did that. Well, the San Antonio Spurs were owned by a family. We were owned by AOL Time Warner at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So we just had this conservative mindset. And so I became just frustrated about having to be putting the handcuffs on the marketing people. And I started to get annoying to these marketing people. I'd say, why are you using this color? This color, why are you using this?
Yeah.
Ugly. It's like aren't you here for legal review? But I really wanted to be more on the marketing side. I really have always had that in me. And, when I finally made the switch to real estate, it has served me very well.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it. You went from being like Toby in The Office. I don't know if you ever watched that, but it's like, no,
100%.
You can't do that. Yeah. To, being able to run your show. And so, okay, that makes a lot of sense to free you up to kind of run it. So when you moved over, were you straight into Phyllis Browning, or were you on your own? Okay. So you've been with Phyllis the whole time.
Well, I did leave for actually 8 years in the middle.
Okay.
I just needed to go kind of see how, another broker did it, but I did miss the people at Phyllis Browning Company, and Phyllis herself and her daughter Jennifer. It does feel like a family, and I did want that in my career.
Yeah. All right. So you're at Phillips Browning. Okay. So then you're building your business over the last 20 years or so, right? So again, high-end luxury right now, since you've gone from 30 or so transactions per year in your price point to over 700, what challenges you told me right before we jumped on, like what challenges are you seeing in that market right now? Doesn't sound like many. And can you speak to why or what's happening? Give me that.
Yeah. Well, the overall challenge for high-end real estate in the San Antonio area remains our lack of a corporate presence compared to most major cities in the United States. We just do not have very many corporations that have headquartered here. And in the past, our education system didn't necessarily allow for bright young minds to go to college, either here or somewhere else, and come back and work here. So we had a lot of, we bled talent to Dallas, Austin, Houston, and then other cities in the U.S. That's gotten better, but however, AT&T was headquartered here until 2008. And when they left, that was a huge exodus where we got to sell many, many high-end homes at once, but we haven't exactly replaced them with another mega corporation.
Yeah.
I'm still a little confused as to why, because we are still far more affordable than many other cities. So I just would have thought that there would have been more than one major corporation that would say, this is cost and quality of life issue, and San Antonio can solve both those problems.
Yeah.
There's a chance that we don't yet have the workforce that they're looking for, the educated workforce. But I feel like in our future that is coming, but it's not here yet. So I mentioned that we've got about 600 to 700 sales overall in the San Antonio metro area, over $1 million. That's so much more than it used to be, but Dallas, Austin, and Houston, they're over 7,500, closer to 10,000. Okay. So we're like 8 to 12% as far as the number of transactions. That's crazy.
Yeah. What does that compare to on like the population size, like per capita? Like what is that?
Yeah,
Do you know that?
Yeah. And Randall, it's tough. I hate to put too much scope into it because San Antonio is larger than Dallas. However, that is an absolute just trivia of incorporation.
Yeah.
Dallas has 1,000 suburbs.
Yeah.
Antonio has like 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So all of Dallas population gets rolled into Plano or, those types of things.
Yeah.
And so there's really about 5 times more people that live in the Dallas area than San Antonio. But if you look up which is the bigger city, you're going to hear San Antonio.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But still fraction of the volume that they're seeing.
Absolutely.
So one thing, so I'm ULI. Are you familiar with ULI, Urban Land Institute? It's a commercial. Okay. So here in San Antonio, the last couple of years, I've been sitting on some committees and talking to a bunch of people there. And it seems to be like a consistent theme that San Antonio is just kind of lacking a cool factor. And like if we had a cool factor, right? And so the Pearl, that development has certainly helped bring in some of the coolness and the downtown vibe and the downtown feel. But that seems to be that plus what you hit on, which is the lack of the labor force, the educated labor force. I think those two things, if we could help fix those, that'd be.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's such a good point. And the Pearl is a massive cool factor. When I've got friends from Dallas that come visit us, they lose their minds about how amazing it is that you can park in one place and, choose 20 plus excellent eateries. And in my way of thinking, it's a little more like in Dallas, you've got Allen, Frisco. You've got these places that they seem like they're tiny little places compared to San Antonio, but they actually have more money. So in Allen, you're going to have centers based around a Whole Foods market. How many Whole Foods markets do we have? We have one. It's basically the original at the Quarry. Okay. Yeah. I keep thinking, well, how have they not put one in Boerne? But
yeah.
I know they have great access to demographics and things like that tell them that maybe it's too early. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, we need more spaces that are like Allen, Texas, where you have just super high-end shopping and dining. We're starting to get more of that, of course, like in Boerne. and Bulverde, places like that on 281 North, but it's not to the same level. It's just not yet. And looking forward to when we can get a little more action.
Same here. I agree. Yeah, it's something we discuss a lot. The one we had a meeting yesterday, we were talking about neighborhood development committee. We're talking about how, again, just on the small scale, just make those little neighborhoods cool, little pockets that we have in San Antonio. So
we're proud to be sponsored by Ridgeline Investment Group. Ridgeline has a track record of transacting more than $53 million in assets throughout Texas. Ridgeline is currently looking to acquire 100 to 200 unit Class B multifamily communities between 5 and 20 million in San Antonio, Temple, Waco, Tyler, and other Texas secondary markets. To learn more about Ridgeline Investment Group, visit www.ridgelineig.com.
Let's move on. Let's chat about, so the reason for the show, right? The whole idea is to help agents, one, grow their active income, right? And you're very successful. Your team's very successful. So I want to dive into your team a little bit, kind of see how you guys have structured it. But even before that, just, get an idea of some of the tools or things that you and your team use that may help you that could help benefit other agents, unless it's like proprietary to Phil's Brown or something like that. But, what are you seeing? How are you guys winning deals? Like, what do you feel like is helping you guys get deals right now?
Well, I do think it comes down to our marketing, and I'm the only agent ever at this company that has hired their own marketing person, because there is a marketing team at Phyllis Browning and they're fine. But I just felt like we needed somebody strictly devoted to our team only. So, I think that we do a really good job checking the boxes, covering all the bases about how anyone might consume high-end real estate in this city. So if they want to touch something, we're going to be in magazines. We're going to send out postcards. If they want to see something on a screen, we're going to have social media and, of course, a website for our team, but a website for each of the properties that we're selling. And then we do things in person as well to then further accentuate it. COVID, was a little bit of a challenge, because the final piece to our marketing puzzle is, okay, we can do everything, social media and magazines. We get our faces and words out there, but then the final piece of the puzzle is to go out in the public. So all of a sudden people start looking at you. Have we met? Do I know you? And they'll start coming up to you. It's better than any name tag that you could ever wear, is to have this marketing presence where people are like, wait, do I recognize you? Or maybe they actually do know who you are. But that now happens to myself and the entire team anytime we go out. So it was tricky, during the pandemic when we weren't able to do that. So things kind of slowed down. That's a piece of the puzzle I think a lot of realtors miss when they're doing a comprehensive marketing plan. They'll do a lot of things on paper or on a screen really well, but it's that personal where you're face to face with someone at a restaurant, a bar, volunteering, whatever it's going to be, where you don't have to say, hey, I'm a realtor, you need to sell something with me. Instead, the hard work you've put in allows it where people will approach you and say, hey, do I know you? Or, hey, you're that guy, aren't you? Or you're this realtor. And that's the biggest, easiest icebreaker there is.
Yeah.
So it's that personal touch that I absolutely tell many realtors if they're struggling to get it rolling, and they almost always don't have that, where they're like, hey, I've paid for postcards, but I never go out to the restaurant that in that neighborhood on a Friday night. I'm going to run into half the people. They got to do that.
Yeah, that's great advice. So did you set this up? Yeah, I think you started the Glast Group in 2020. Is that accurate?
That's right.
Okay. So did you already have a marketing team personally for yourself prior to that?
No.
Okay. So you're kicking off right when COVID is coming down the pipe.
Right. That's right. But frankly, that was what gave me the impetus to jump in and do it. Prior to spring of 2020, I just had one person on my team, and that was that way since 2007. And I really did want to grow and expand, because today I do get more joy in seeing other people flourish in this business than myself. And so that gives me joy and happiness. So I wanted to expand and add more people. And fortunately, the person that I was with at the time, she was not on board with that. So we had to part ways for me to finally say, all right, I want to hire this many people and in this city and that type of thing. And
yeah,
it's
so curious then on the marketing side, how did you ramp that up? And when did you actually start seeing some kind of return on that investment? Because again, if you're just starting that, it can be a slow burn. It can take some time to get like a visual return on your investment, depending on what activity it is. So one, I guess the question could be, what was the highest ROI activity that you performed? And then how long did that take to actually ramp up?
Absolutely. It sounds sad, but it's postcards. And many realtors will disagree because they haven't had success. I have, and so has my team. And I think it's because we do it in a very intentional way. We try to have a reason to send these cards. Now, just listed or just sold, that's a reason, but it's pretty basic. It's the reason that anyone does it. So we try to say just listed and just sold, and this is the highest sale ever in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
This is the highest sale the entire city, or this is the highest sale in the past quarter. We try to give something that will hook people in, that even if they're not in the market, they're not going to be angry that this is junk mail. We try to use beautiful images front and back, just so whether they're ever going to be buying or selling a house, it's something that's pretty. And hopefully we create goodwill with this type of thing. And so maybe they're not going to be in the market, but 3 days later, they're going to be at a party and someone says they want to be selling their house. Oh, well, I just got this postcard. Wow, it looks great. Maybe you should talk to this guy. So that was effective, but I think it does need relevance, or it's like, why are you even doing this? So that's what we try to do, is find at least one interesting statistic that shows why we're sending this out besides, hey, we just sold this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good advice too. So when you send that out, how long was it? Cause we did ton of postcards, different type of investment sales and buying, flipping the houses, that sort of thing. But I always noticed it took me about 90 days turn from when I dropped mail to actually get, like, what is on the brokerage side, like, what are you seeing?
I would say it's 60 to 90 days.
Yeah. Something like that.
Every year I'll get a call from somebody that has held on to a postcard for 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
They have a file for when they're going to be selling. And so it can pay off fairly quickly, but I think it can be part of a comprehensive, all right, this may happen soon, but you're also planting seeds and watering the grass for the future too.
Yeah, it does. It takes a long time. Okay. Good advice there. So you're with Phyllis Browning. So I'm just kind of curious, what services do you or your team or even Phyllis Browning provide that you think sets you guys apart from other brokerages, even on the high end side of the business?
Sure. Well, I do think that even though we do have our own marketing person that, she liaises with the marketing in-house department. So, they are going to have the pretty 4-color brochures and, websites and things like that. So we definitely do take advantage of that, and we'll design the postcard, but then Phyllis Browning Marketing they'll give us the addresses and send it out and things like that. I mean, there are some sales stuff that I've encouraged my team to really sit in on. Like, they teach ninja training, which I realize that I do some of those things, even if I haven't necessarily had it in a chart or something like that. So I do think some of those programs are good. And so like on Wednesdays, they'll have speakers and things like that. And I'll encourage the team to go hear those speakers. As a group, we have our own meetings and our own speakers, but I also feel like there are benefits to being with a larger brokerage. Past 2 years, we've sold more than half of our listings to agents at Phyllis Browning, and a lot of them happened before they even went out to the public, because it's a place where there's many strong high-end agents. And so when you have a high-end property to market, a lot of times it's just a matter of, hey, I'm going to be getting this listing. Does anyone have anything for it? So we have absolutely dominated, not just the group, but as a company, for private sales that never go out to the public. And that's a healthy amount of sales above $1 million.
Yeah, that's a huge benefit. Absolutely.
It's one that when I was gone for a few years, I definitely missed out on that benefit, because I mean, I've got friends at other brokers and I will definitely reach out to them. But a lot of times it starts off within the offices here at Phyllis Browning and it never goes outside of that because it doesn't need it. And everybody's happy. The buyer gets to see something that's not out to the public. They don't have to share with everybody on Zillow.
Yeah.
And the seller doesn't usually have to budge when it's sold before it goes to the market.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I think that's a huge benefit to everybody involved in that transaction, especially if you're dealing with high end and somebody wants anonymity or not disclosing price and whatever, it's I think that's a huge thing that you guys can provide.
Yes.
So like how was your team structured now? You went from you and then a marketing person, or you an assistant, or you and one agent, I guess, and then you hired marketing. And so how are you structured right now?
So we have, at this point, we've got 6 agents in San Antonio, 1 in Austin, and then we have an operations manager that does all of the admin stuff plus much more. And we have our director of marketing. So it's a team of 9 right now. And I think it's an unusual team because it's a hybrid, which is everybody brands themselves under the group, Jason Glast Group, but they're also allowed to brand themselves individually. So on any postcard they send out, well, it has the Jason Glast Group logo, it has the Phyllis Browning logo, but they can have their individual photo and their individual phone number and email. I want those leads as much as possible to flow directly to them. In the past, teams were normally set up for residential with, okay, there's the big boss under he or she or all these minions that are just there to serve until they can become perhaps the big boss one day. Well, I didn't want to have that be the case at all. I wanted to set this up so everybody can 100% stay with this team and benefit and thrive far more than if they were on their own. One of the ways I do this, I don't work with buyers. And I haven't really worked with buyers with just a handful of exceptions since about 2008. And this is something I did intentionally. I like the listing side of the business. I wanted to be with my family, with my children at all the events. And that's hard to do if you're out showing a buyer, 30 houses on a weekend. That's very, very difficult. So this was my goal. And so with my team, they each have their own listings and they each work with buyers. But when I get buyer leads, which I do fairly frequently on my listings, I will give those out to team members. Some of that will be based on the neighborhood that the buyer is interested in. Some of it might be based on the schools that their kids are attending. It's like, okay, Todd has a kid at TMI, a kid at Geneva. So if somebody has kids at those schools, Todd might be the fit. Andrea lives in Terrell Hills. So someone wants to be in the Tri-Cities, then she can be a fit. Kim's kids go to Basis. It's like, and she knows more about schools than any person I've ever met in my life. And Bennett is like,
my wife may challenge her on that. I don't know. She's been doing
yeah. And see, but no, I would reach out to her and y'all can compare notes.
Yeah.
And then Bennett is, Mr. Bernie, so ingrained in that community. So everybody kind of has their specialties, but it wasn't, I thought it would be more geographic when I first started. But then sometimes you got someone that's a Longhorn and that's Kim, that's me. Someone that's an Aggie, that's Todd, that's Bennett. And it just kind of, there's all these different ways that you can kind of sort it out, figure it out. And I'm just so proud of all of them. But I think that they're happy because they're all doing extremely well. But I'm not like this big boss. I mean, I check in, I talk with them every week, and we have meetings every 2 weeks. But they know I'm there for them if they have questions or issues. But I'm never going to be saying, okay, how much did you work today? What did you do today? I do not care. I just care about production and ethics and, them. I mean, they make me look good and, hopefully I make them look good too.
You guys look great. I got to tell you, I've seen the glossy mags. You guys look phenomenal. So I guess, man, I had a question for you. Man, lost it, man. So you got your team, you guys are covering all the bases. You're out and about, you're doing some things. I don't know. I lost it there. I guess, what are you guys planning for this year? A high level on like the market. Are you guys seeing any slowdown? Are you guys like ramping up? Are you, oh, no. This is the question. I really want to ask this because I'm very curious on like a very personal level, going from you and one other person. Do you get more joy now out of having a team where you are helping shepherd the team kind of, and you have more interaction with people, or did you like the solo work better? Like how have you evolved, I guess? How are your feelings about that?
Thank you. It's a great question. I have much more joy with the team because I like diversity in my daily routine. And yes, having 9 people overall, that it makes it, there is no boring day, no dull day. So it was getting a little bit routine with just the 2 of us. So this has helped me. I enjoy managing people as well as, the work I'm still doing as a listing agent. But I just love watching them grow and thrive because each of them was selected because they had talent and potential. But except for Andrea, who had been doing it for 8 or 9 years, each of them were fairly new to the business. And she was someone that just needed someone to help unlock her potential. And then last year, she sold nearly 18 million. I mean, that's a top 25 in the city figure. But of course, she kind of has to give that up. That's the way Phyllis Browning does it. You can't have your individual awards if you're on a team. And they willingly give that part of the business, that ego, that part up. And, I try to make it so they still get all kinds of praise and accolades, and yes, money too. They're all doing well. They're all doing really well, better than I would have even predicted. They had the skills and talent. I just didn't know it would all come together this quickly.
Yeah, that's all. So yeah, I think that having people around you, it makes you grow as the leader and as not the big boss, as you say, but it has always helped me. And it's one of those things when I have always wanted to work on my own. I'm like, I don't need anybody. I can do it on my own. And then I realized when we had a team, it's like, oh, this is good. Like and it's not just that, you have the group think, everybody grows together. It's fantastic. So I definitely wanted to ask you that. So let's move on, talk market real fast, kind of seeing what you guys are planning for this year. Do you see anything tapering off? You guys see it exploding? What are you thinking right now?
Well, in December, I definitely was thinking this year would be significantly slower compared to 21 and 22. But then January cranked up and it was the busiest January we've ever had. And we're having the most closings and the most production in February that we've ever had. So can I predict that'll keep going? I couldn't. I mean, it would just I'd be afraid of jinxing it. But here's what I think. There was tons of pent up demand from the fourth quarter of 22. There weren't that many good houses out there to start with. Okay. So there was demand because we didn't have enough good inventory. And then it was an important midterm election. The midterm election always will get people sitting on the fence, trying to read the tea leaves about what does this mean? Well, for various reasons, it was probably even more of a bigger election, midterm election than normal. And so I think people, combined with, of course, the story about inflation and rising interest rates, I think it made more people than normal sit on the fence. So first and second quarter of 22 were just huge, just enormous. Third started to go down. And then fourth was quieter than a fourth quarter that we've seen in a while. So I was a little worried that it would continue that way. But no, as soon as the election was over, and then inflation arguably is improving, interest rates still basically twice as high as they have been for a lot of the last 5-6 years. But are people getting used to it? Maybe. Are they realizing that, gosh, maybe they can refinance? There's just different ways around it. And we are extremely fortunate that in our price range that we typically work in, we're still at this point probably 50% cash and 50% mortgages.
Yeah. Now,
when the rates were closer to 3%, it was more like 80% mortgages, because even if people could pay all cash, they would, feel like they'd be a fool not to take advantage of the cheap money.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I was talking to another agent in Rhode Island. He was mentioning the same thing. They've spiked. They're still getting multiple offers on their deals. And so, yeah, that seems to be, again, the pent up demand. I wonder if what you were seeing here in San Antonio were sellers just hesitant to list, or were buyers hesitant to buy? You had listings, but you just didn't have people buying because the rates were increasing.
And they weren't the best listings. That's the key. And now we can speculate various reasons. Well, first of all, if they were best listings, they'd be gone before we even had a chance to talk about them, and probably before they even went out to the public. Okay. Yeah. But these sellers, unless they were moving cities, they didn't know what else they're going to buy. Yeah. So I have all of these clients right now that if they can find a 1-story, 2,500 square foot high-end home with beautiful finish out, we could sell their 5,000 square foot luxury home in a heartbeat. But we can't find that perfect downsize product for them. And by the way, that's not just because of various factors like the pandemic or supply chain. We just don't have enough of that ever. I've tried to encourage builders, hey, build something that's 2,000 square feet and it can be $500, $600 a square foot. The overall price still matters. And if you can give them what they want, this type of stuff that's existed in Dallas and Houston and LA for decades, we don't have it here because the developers and the builders had a mindset of only by being as big as possible can we profit the most. Our margins will be the most when we can offer low price per square foot. And,
it's Texas,
big square footage.
Yeah, huge houses.
And I think I'm sure it was helpful for a while, but at some point we have all these people coming from much more expensive metro areas that have moved here. And they're like, where is the really beautiful stuff? Like, where's the innovative, beautiful stuff that I'd seen in a design magazine? Yeah.
Where would you put it in San Antonio? Where would you be building this product?
Right now, I'd say definitely inside. I'd say inside 410, probably the easiest. Inside 1604 still could be great. In between 410 and 1604 could be great. I'd say it's outside, north of 1604 that'd be, people might go there to start with because of the size of lots.
Yeah.
They might be looking for bigger yards still and things like that. But I know I'm not the only one that has a tremendous amount of clients that they would pay nearly anything if they could find their perfect little jewel box where they can lock it up and leave it, and they can go travel for a month and they don't need to worry about their house here. We don't have enough of that, and I hope we can get more.
Interesting. That's an interesting conversation for another day on the pickleball court. That's piqued my interest there. So let's jump into investing. We're coming to the top of the hour, but on just the investment side. So again, highly successful on the brokerage side of the business. I don't know if you're investing. I don't know if you buy houses. I don't know if you invest in syndications. I don't know what you do. So if you do any investing, maybe not stocks or anything like that, but alternative assets, do you have investments in those? If so, like, what do they look like? What do you like? And maybe we can talk to that just a little bit, or even
Absolutely.
Single family or duplex.
I think this would be good. Maybe you can give me some counsel, but I'm a big, weak, fraidy cat when it comes to going outside the box. I have become so set in just doing what I do for active income that I've been very shut off to passive income. When we moved here, it was to flip houses 21 years ago.
Okay.
We did 3 projects over by Alamo Heights Junior High School. And it seemed perfect. Back then you could buy those ranch houses, and ranch houses are so great for flipping because they're generally solid, 1-story. They don't have wacky floor plans. Well, we were successful while being relatively conservative. Okay. We were trying to make, 10 to 15% margins. We were just afraid to get too aggressive, but we were successful. But it was almost like each success we had, it meant that it was harder and harder to buy the next one. First, it was like $90 a square foot, and then $100. And then today in that neighborhood, which is called Northridge,
North. Yeah. I was going to say
You'll find
Northwood or
stuff over
North.
200.
Yeah.
Yeah, $200 per square foot. And so we didn't have the stomach to play in that rising market, where now I look back and I realize we could have just kept resetting the market. Yes, maybe using different materials, and it was the right school district and everything, but we were just timid.
Yeah.
And so, this is something I want to pay attention to other guests on your podcast to talk about alternative assets and things like that. So Todd on my team, the only really part of the law that he still practices is that I think he's president of like the Downtown Airbnb Association. And so he's gotten a little specialty with Airbnb law, which got fascinating during the pandemic, when it's like, okay, you can't go stay at the Airbnb because there's this pandemic, and how does acts of God play into your contracts and things like that? That was very interesting. But he owns 5, at least, I think 5 Airbnbs that are in that Dignity Hill, Government Hill area. And they make these things beautiful. And he doesn't mind if, like, he'll add a pool, he'll put in a pool, he'll put these attractive things. I'm like, really? You keep these things full and that expensive? That is kind of inspiring to me, because it's the opposite of like this slumlord thing. No, they're literally improving these properties to a huge extent. And then they're making it, people want to vacation and stay in these gorgeous places. So that's one version that I'm very interested in. The other thing is, and my wife has mentioned it several times, she wants to be the typical, let's buy homes and be the landlord and get that rental income. And I've just always been like, too much trouble.
It certainly can be. Yeah.
Yeah. If we hire a property manager, well, that's 10%. And she thinks she can be the property manager. And I'm just like, nope, you don't understand. You just don't understand how it's going to be. But she could be right. She literally could be right about that. And I want things sometimes, I definitely want things simple. But I think one of my flaws is that stops creative thinking. And the excuse is, no, that's complicated. I want it simple. Yeah. I think there are ways, when you just study and learn about these different assets that you're talking about, well, that becomes simple once you have knowledge about it.
I agree 100% that it can become simple. I would say on the property management side, it depends on the asset. It depends on the property. If you're buying nice high end, or you're improving, like you said, Todd is doing, and it's relatively easy, fantastic. If you're buying something else on the east side that's not in Dignity or not in Government Hill, flip that. Don't manage that yourself. It's a headache. And my wife can attest to that, because we bought a lot of low end houses and we fix them up, but tenant base is much different. So I can't speak to the Airbnb side of it. Go ahead.
All right. I want to ask you though. So for those assets, like, do you have a plan going in? Like, we'll keep it for this long, or once we have this income? I mean, what's the plan?
Ultimately, it depends on the deal. But at the time we were really acquiring houses, I would keep some rentals and then I would flip some properties. And it just, because of the same way you will market for deals, I would just market. It's a shotgun approach, and sellers are calling me. And so I have to look at it on a deal by deal basis. And so if it made sense as a rental, we'd keep it. If I could owner finance it, 100% would do that. Like, I love doing that, because then there's no taxes, insurance, toilets, tenants, any of that.
And so how often would you have to take action on that, or did it all go smooth?
1 in 20.
Okay.
Right. It's not high. That when you have people that really want to buy and they're putting a chunk of money down, typically they're going to keep up with the property and maintain it. Like, one of the first houses I bought was in Dignity, and I bought it for $20,000 in 2009. Right. That thing now is probably worth the lot. He hasn't done anything to improve it. And it's on a little alley. It's on Dawson, and it is probably, the lot alone is worth $350. But I bought it for 20, sold it, carried for 60. He guy still owes me money on it, so he's been paying payments since 2009. So, that's that on that front. But I'm curious, if you want the easy button and you want the switch, have you looked at apartments or storage or any of these things? Because guys are buying, and if you have, what's your take on it? What's your knee jerk? Because you're shaking your head, so I don't know.
Yeah. So thankfully, my stepfather he's been an apartment investor since the 90s for sure. And that became his favorite class for sure. So him and my mom, they owned a really large apartment complex outside of Waco and Lacey Lakeview, right on I-35. And it was a place that there's a technical school in Waco, and a lot of those tech school students would stay there. And it was a real rundown, distressed kind of asset when they got it, and they just made it charming. And I would laugh at them, like, why are you kind of showing so much love to a place that doesn't need it? But they just thought doing it the best possible would have its own reward. And they held it until probably 2018. And they made great money every year, but they had to go to Waco quite a bit. They had to deal with manager issues and things like that. And
how many units do you know?
I want to say probably around 300.
Okay. So yeah, sizable.
Like
yeah.
Yeah.
But they're not swinging hammers. They weren't doing that. It was property management.
Sometimes they'd be there swinging hammers like, Mom, why are you doing this? This is your great years. But she loved that stuff. And there was a fire, the things I would hear from them, I'd be like, is this really worth it? Because there were some pains, but when they sold it, I mean, it was it was almost like on a slightly different level, a little bit like the Dignity place that you're talking about. 20,000 turns into 350 to 400. I mean, it was just such a massive return that, it opened my eyes. And so we have put in our money into a few different apartments nationwide that my stepfather, he found some opportunities for. And, that's been 2-3 years. I can't tell you that. I mean, I guess that is some passive stuff. My wife is paying more attention to it than I have. But it's something that if we hold it for probably 10 years, it'll do extremely well. And we're not having to do any day-to-day hand-wringing about it.
Yeah, that to me is if you don't want to, I mean, that's truly passive in the sense, and obviously it depends on the operator, whoever you're working with, but if you're getting distributions or not, and sometimes on a development deal, you're not going to get any distributions until it sells, but if it's an operating asset, then it is really like some passive income. And if you're an agent that is a real estate professional, you should be getting a sizable tax deduction from your investment as well. So I'm not sure if you guys are getting, seeing that on your tax returns or not, but the sponsor would be sending that out in your K1s. But yeah, that's interesting. So not so much on the investing side. I don't know. I thought that we talked about this.
I'm not proud of that. I'm not proud of it. And it's just about, it's not about like, okay, I'm missing out on all this money. It's about just being closed minded to opportunity, which that's not good for anybody. For many, many reasons, people should keep an open mind.
So what advice would you give other agents then? That keep an open mind.
Yeah, don't be a fraidy cat. Yeah. Don't be a fraidy cat. I'll say this, getting into selling real estate too. Well, don't be closed-minded to some commercial stuff, just different parts of the business, which yes, I narrow casted. I went focused on one thing, and it just could be that my brain has become kind of solidified like concrete. And yes, it's been basically good, but I think it'd be better to make sure your mind keeps flexible. I've been doing a lot of reading about left brain and right brain, and like the creative mindset versus the logical mindset. And so I think it's important that, people really know themselves, and yes, know what you're good at, but realize that, hey, you weren't good at anything, when you were born. You had to learn, you had to become an expert. And, investments should probably be the same thing, where you can either do all the research and work yourself, or you can do the research to find somebody that knows what they're doing and, find opportunities that way.
Yeah, for sure.
Open-mindedness is key to thriving throughout the different generations of your life.
Yeah. I will say though, having a focus and niching down like you did and being successful. Ryan, I had Ryan on, we were talking, Ryan's my brother, and we were talking about him investing, and it's easy, I would say, for most people to get the shiny object and then go squirrel and just run off and chase something else. And so I know that we had a few friends that were doing startups and running some businesses, and they're raising capital, and they put something in front of me, and I was like, I have no idea what this is. Like, I know real estate. I'm going to stick with real estate. I'm going to stay in real estate. And I didn't invest, and everybody else invested. Another buddy put on a concert here in town, and it's like, I don't know concerts. Is he going to win? I have no idea. But those types of things still, I looked at them. I looked at the offering and kind of figured, do I want to take a flyer or not? It's like buying an NFT. Like, do you want to buy some Bitcoin and take a risk? But yeah, he mentioned, and he brought it back up to me when those investments were put in front of us. And I mentioned, look, I know what I know, and I'm going to stay with what I know. So there's two sides to that. It's not necessarily being closed-minded about it, but really, if you know what you're good at and you're making money doing it, don't necessarily shy away from it. So
yeah, you don't want to have
give yourself some kudos there.
A little balance, though. Balance would be good. And I think it keeps things interesting too.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to wrap it up. It's been a great conversation. I want to ask you 3 quick questions that I ask everybody. First is, what is your favorite pastime not related to business?
I'm a huge sports fan. I've always enjoyed playing and watching, and if I could just like take a summer off, I would probably go tour maybe all the Major League Baseball stadiums or even minor league stadiums. I love like minor league parks and just chilling out that way. So yeah, that's something, and anything my kids are into, I very much enjoy.
Yeah. Getting over to Scotland seems like it's
that's
in the cards.
Nice.
Okay. So what's the best thing or memory that's happened to you or your family in the recent history, 60 days or so?
The best thing. Okay. Well, I'd have to say, so my son did choose to go to college in Scotland. And I mean, it's easy. Him coming home and, being back with us for 5 weeks was amazing. It was great, and really got to engage with him on, a different level than when he was in high school.
Yeah. Has he grown a lot being over and being on his own?
Yeah. Yeah. And he was an independent kid to start with. So, it's a great place for him. And even though I do miss him, it's great to watch him thrive.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. All right. And then last, name 1 or 2 people who have been most influential to either the way you think or your success.
Sure. I will say I had a basketball coach named Herman Card in Dallas. And I went through all kinds of weight problems growing up. I would be often the heaviest kid in our class. And, but I really loved basketball, and I had a really good shot, but I was just too overweight to ever get on the court because I couldn't run. I couldn't get up and down. And then he was the varsity coach, but I remember he was my advisor like in 5th grade because our school went 1st through 12th grade. And, he was so positive towards me always, just telling me, okay, just don't worry, keep working. You're going to lose the weight. And so it did happen when I was in 10th grade. And my life really changed. And unfortunately, he had been dismissed from our school the year before I was a senior. But he got hired by one of our rival schools in Houston, and we ended up playing in the state championship game against his team. And I remember I hit 3 3-pointers in that game, and we upset them. And I just remember being so eternally grateful to this man for just pouring in the positivity into me as a kind of an overweight kid. I mean, he was in a group with like the Dallas Mavericks, and like he was an impressive college basketball player himself. I'll never forget that he did that to me. And I had another coach for baseball that was very similar, where he kind of knew what buttons to push about, how to keep me motivated. So that was Herman Card, and then the other guy was Sam Carpenter, both at St. Mark's in Dallas. And they put me on the right path, and I'll never forget that.
Yeah, it's incredible because I had a similar experience with a English teacher, but it's incredible what that at that age, a few encouraging words can do and get you on a track, or just like get your head out so that you're moving in the right direction. So fantastic.
Thank you for asking that question. I bet you get great answers for that.
Yeah. So again, Jason, thanks for coming on. See you on the pickleball court, obviously. It's been great getting to know you better in the business sense and sharing your knowledge, your experience, and your information with all the guests. So appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on, and we'll catch up soon.
Randall, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Did you know that 80% of the agents we speak with got into real estate in order to gain passive income so they could obtain financial freedom and become work optional? If you want to stay up to date, the best way is to make sure you're subscribed. So if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now. We'll catch you on the next episode.